Hi and welcome to another story, and today we have part 3 of The Danger Gang by Tom Fletcher, continuing from page 105, April. Danny, thanks for your letter, it was great, but I can't talk about that now because this is an emergency. This is not a drill. Something happened at school today and I don't know what to do. You're the only person in the whole world, galaxy, universe that I could possibly tell because this is top secret. Military level, top secret. If this information falls into the wrong hands, then that person's life might be in jeopardy. Alright, maybe that part wasn't totally true, but I just wanted to scare your nosy sister in case she was reading your letters. I'll assume you're alone now. I can trust you, right? Ready? Okay. It happened at school this morning. Every Tuesday morning after history, we have swimming lessons in the school pool. I can guess what you're thinking. A school pool. Your school must be one of those super fancy posh ones with ponies and tennis courts. Well, think again. Everyone at my school hates swimming. First of all, the changing rooms are freezing. There are icicles hanging from the coat pegs and frost covering the locker doors. There's stinky black mould on the walls and puddles of very suspicious-looking water on the floor that we try to tiptoe around. We all have to wear these awful school uniform swimming trunks, costumes for the girls, obviously. They're not stretchy and colourful like the kind you'd wear if you went on holiday to Barbados or Bermuda or Disneyland. They're really grey, really tight and really scratchy. And the worst part, our swimming teacher, Mr. Kovacs, is nearly 7 feet tall, as skinny as a goggle strap, and has terrifying pop-out bright blue eyes like a demonic swimming robot. He is very concerned that everybody learns to swim and is safe in the water and that there is no messing around in his pool. He shouts and screams, and whenever he shouts and screams, he also spits. Remember those mysterious puddles I told you about? Everyone has to learn to swim. No exceptions, that's the rule. Swimming rules, everyone has to learn to swim. No exceptions. That's totally fine by me, because I learned to swim ages ago when our families both went to Funlin's family camp for a whole summer. Do you remember? Our parents rented those awesome caravans and parked them next to each other, and we had our own swimming pool in the middle, until my dad said to your dad that they should jump off the roof into the pool, and then our mums made them park the caravans further away in case we tried to copy them. But it still didn't stop us trying. Anyway, all the other kids in my class can swim too, except for one. That unfortunate boy is called Eric Flipperson. I think I might have mentioned Eric before. He lives on my street, like some of the other kids in my class, and sometimes we even walk home from school together. Eric's a nice kid. He's got curly blonde hair and loads of freckles. He's friendly and good at art, and he likes reading comics. He's pretty confident too, most of the time. But not when we have swimming lessons. Every single time we have swimming lessons, this is what happens. We trudge out of the changing rooms trying to cover up our really grey, really tight, really scratchy trunks and dodging the suspicious puddles on the tiled floor. We line up alongside the pool in alphabetical order. Mr. Kovacs barks commands at us and we do some warm-up stretches. Mr. Kovacs blows his whistle and we all jump in. The pool is even colder than the changing rooms. Eric does not jump in. He stands by the wall, his legs get wobbly and his skin goes grey, a bit like his swimming trunks. Mr. Kovacs' pop-out eyes pop out even more. Finally, he has to come and give Eric some words of encouragement to get him into the pool. The pool isn't even that deep, and we can all touch the bottom. I don't really see what the big deal is for Eric, but I guess everyone's scared of something. Except me, I'm not scared of anything. Eric splutters to the surface, splashing and coughing and shivering. We try to make him feel a bit better. You can do it, Eric, I whisper, giving him a thumbs up. Only 2 lengths to go, adds Jamelia, smiling. That's right. The worst thing about Eric not being able to swim is that the rest of us aren't allowed to get out of the freezing cold pool until the whole class has completed 2 lengths. That means we all have to wait for poor Eric. We could whiz up and down the lanes like we were competing at the Olympics, but then we'd still have to hang about while Eric struggled and splashed. Sometimes he actually swims, well, walks. I think his feet are touching the bottom the whole time, so slowly that it looks like he's actually going backwards, and by the time we get out, our fingers and toes are like the wrinkly elephant skin on my granny's neck. But the swimming lesson this morning was a little different. We all lined up as usual, ready to jump in and get our freezing cold lengths over and done with. Poor old Eric tippy-toed along the wall with his nervous wobbly legs. Then Mr. Kovacs took a deep breath. Today, we will be having a race, he boomed. Oh no, I grumbled. And there will be a prize for the winner, he added. Yes, I yelled. The person who comes first will receive this shiny gold medal, Mr. Kovacs said, holding up the shiniest gold medal any of us had ever seen. Ronnie Nutbog laughed. I don't care about a stupid medal, he scoffed. I've got loads of them at home already. Medals for swimming, medals for karate, medals for danger skateboarding. The thing is, we all knew that Ronnie wanted that medal more than any of us. Well, except for me. I've never had a medal in my whole life. I know. How crazy is that? I wanted that medal so badly that I was going to swim until my arms and legs fell off and sank to the bottom of the pool with a thunk, and even then I'd keep swimming until I finished the race and won that medal. I could already picture my life with it hanging around my neck, and it was 100% better than my life without it. On your marks, get set, go! Mr. Kovacs shouted suddenly, and we all leapt into the pool, swimming and splashing faster and harder than ever before. I came up to snatch a breath and caught sight of Mr. Kovacs giving Eric his usual encouragement into the pool, and here's where things got freaky. The exact same moment that Eric touched the water, the whole pool seemed to flash a freaky green colour. In fact, it was the exact same green as the lightning I saw in the storm last month. After the green flash, a ripple shot out across the water as though it had been zapped with some sort of energy. It only lasted a split second. I looked around. Jamelia and Molly and Ronnie and all the others were front-crawling as fast as their arms and legs could carry them. Everyone was so busy trying to win the race that no one seemed to notice it, except me. Weird, right? Well, that's nothing compared to what happened next. By now, everyone was at the far end of the pool, about to twist around and swim the final length. This is when we'd usually see poor old Eric Flipperson flapping around at the opposite end as we charged back towards him. But not today. Eric was nowhere to be seen. I felt a cold shiver down my back. If Eric was nowhere to be seen, that meant he must be under the water. "Mr. Kovacs, is Eric okay?" I shouted, but my voice didn't carry over the noise of everyone splashing through the water. Mr. Kovacs stood at the side, hands on his hips, peering into the pool, with a worried look on his face at the spot where Eric had plopped in. His expression turned to shock, then fear. He opened his mouth and screamed, "Shark!" Everybody stopped swimming. Then everybody saw it. A long grey shark fin rose out of the water and was heading straight for us. "A shark ate Eric!" yelled Charlie. There was total panic. Splashing, sploshing, splishing, maybe even a bit of splushing. We all made a dash to get out of the pool before we joined Eric in the shark's belly, but everyone smacked and bashed into one another in the rush to climb out, and we all fell back into the water. "I'll create a distraction," Mr. Kovacs yelled, and he ran to the side of the pool and leapt in. I thought this was pretty cool, because if I was him, I would have left us all to be gobbled up. But it was no use anyway. Mr. Kovacs' heroics failed when the shark used its powerful tail fin to create a huge wave. That washed our swimming teacher straight back out of the water. This is it, I thought, as the shark-shaped shadow approached rapidly under the water. I'm going to be swallowed by a shark in the school swimming pool on a cold Tuesday morning. And it was supposed to be pizza for lunch in the school canteen today too. I could picture the headline now. "Boy Genius swallowed by shark moments before gold medal win." But that's not what happened. I guess you've worked that out though, because I'm not writing to you from inside a shark. Instead of snapping me right up, the shark shot straight through my legs, totally ignoring the nice tasty children flapping about just centimetres from its razor-sharp teeth. Its smooth grey head grazed my bare toes. As it reached the end of the pool, the shark simply flipped around and swam back. It's almost like it's trying to win the race, I stammered. "Now's your chance. Everyone out," screamed Mr. Kovacs, and we all clambered out of the water. I managed to heave myself out first, and I stood up. I caught a glimpse of another green flash spreading like lightning across the surface of the water. It was followed by a grey, shark-shaped blur leaping out of the water and flying through the air. But as the shark landed in the side of the pool, I saw that it was no longer a shark at all. It was a small, shivering boy with curly blonde hair and freckles, and really grey, really tight, really scratchy swimming trunks. "Eric Flipperson!" I yelled. "Eric's alive!" Molly shouted, and everyone ran over and crowded round him. "Eric, how did you escape? What was it like to be swallowed by a shark?" cried a kid called Jimmy. Eric blinked up at us and slowly shook his head. A shark?" he asked. "What are you talking about?" We all looked at one another. There was a shark in the pool," I told him. "Eric, you must have seen it. It swam right past my feet." "It ate you up." "It did not," Eric protested. "I didn't see a shark." And when we turned back to the pool, well, the shark had completely vanished. It was as though it had never existed in the first place. Mr. Kovacs cleared his throat. "Class, I think we may have all been seeing things. Perhaps we had better not mention this to the headmaster." "What about the medal?" demanded Ronnie, and everyone looked at the shiny gold medal still swinging from Mr. Kovacs' hand. "Well," Mr. Kovacs frowned, "there was only one person who completed the race, so I think this medal belongs to you, Eric," he said. Even though I'd really wanted to win it myself, I was pretty happy for Eric. We all were. Everyone clapped and slapped him on the back and shouted, "Go, Eric!" Eric couldn't believe it. He was gawping like a fish, and I don't blame him. Eric Flipping Flipperson, the kid who was scared of water, won the swimming race. Crazy, right? Well, don't get too comfy. This story isn't quite over yet. Everyone, back to the changing rooms and get dressed, ordered Mr. Kovacs, and we all turned to leave, including Eric. And we all saw something so weird, so strange, so freaky. It made Charlie gasp and Molly shiver, and all the hairs on my head stand on end. Right in the middle of Eric's back was a long silver shark fin. Danny, do you understand what I'm trying to tell you? Eric Flipperson wasn't eaten by the shark. Eric Flipperson was the shark. Freaky! I don't know how or why it happened, but something weird made him transform the moment his skin touched the water. Eric plus water equals shark. As soon as we got to the changing room, I grabbed Eric's shoulder. Eric, I hissed, look! He glanced in the chipped mirror, and his eyes nearly popped out of his head, just like Mr. Kovacs. We all gathered around and talked in whispers. What's going on? Asked Jamelia. I don't know, but that was the freakiest thing I've ever seen, whispered Charlie. Eric, you turned into a shark. It's like magic. Eric kept staring at the fin, touching it with the top of his finger, his face pale beneath his freckles. I turned into a shark, was all he could say. As we watched, his face broke into a huge smile. And I won the race, he said. Loads of us decided to meet after school to try to work out how this had happened. So they're all coming over to my new treehouse. It's not quite finished. There's no cinema room or planetarium just yet, so I have to go now, but right back soon, okay? I'm really happy that Eric finally got over the fear of swimming. Now everyone else will just have to get over the fear of swimming with him. Frankie. P.S. Do you ever get the feeling you're being watched? I do. I keep getting this weird shiver, like there's someone watching me, someone in the shadows. Do you get that? Let me know. Bye. May. Danny, you are not going to believe this, but it happened again. If you thought Eric Flipping Flipperson turning into a shark was freaky, then wait until you hear this. Things have been getting weirder and freaky, believe it or not. Remember I told you some kids on my street were coming to my treehouse for a meeting? Well, it was pretty cramped. There was Eric Flipperson, Katie Speck, Charlie Campbell, Molly McClear, Susie Prune, and Jamelia Pointer. And me. In fact, all the kids from my class who live on my street were there, except Ronnie Bum-Faced Nutbog, obviously. We huddled inside and ran some tests on Eric. What sort of tests? Eric asked nervously as I opened Mum's lab kit that I'd taken and borrowed. Don't worry, it won't hurt, trust me, my mum's a scientist. I said, first, we need to come up with a hypothesis. They all blinked at me and I suddenly knew how Miss Tinky must feel when she teaches us French. What is this? Asked Charlie. A hypothesis. It's when you come up with a possible explanation for something happening. Then you do experiments to test whether you're right, I told them. So we need to try and think of an explanation for Eric turning into a shark this afternoon. Oh, right. So what's your hypothesaurus? Asked Katie, which made everyone giggle. It was so funny. I guess you had to be there. Well, have you ever been bitten by a radioactive shark? I asked Eric. What? No, of course I haven't, said Eric. Oh, just had to check the most obvious explanation first, I replied. Hey, Frankie, got any snacks? I'm starving, Susie asked, looking around the treehouse. I've got some Choco Toffee chew bars hidden under that plank of wood, and if you're thirsty, there's a rainwater tap, I said, showing them my newly installed hydration system that collects rain in a bucket on the roof and filters it into an old drinking bottle. Whoa, that's awesome, whispered Susie. I guess I learned it from watching Mum, I shrugged. I haven't got the water flow quite right yet, though, so just don't unscrew it all the way, or... But it was too late. Susie had twisted the bottle all the way open, and a jet of water blasted across the treehouse, spraying everyone, including Eric. There was a weird flicker of green light, and well, you can probably guess what happened. And that's how we discovered that Eric Flipperson turns into a shark every time he gets wet. Luckily, because Eric wasn't totally soaked through, this time, like he had been in the school pool, he wasn't a shark for very long, and after a few seconds he changed back. Plus, this time he seemed to understand what was going on a little more, so none of us getting bitten. Win! Everyone helped me patch up the shark damage in the treehouse before they went home, and we made a promise never to tell anyone what had happened there. As we climbed down the ladder, my copy of Zack Danger and the Danger Gang slipped out of my back pocket and landed on the grass. What's this? Eric asked, picking it up. Oh, it's just the book I'm reading, I said, hopping down from the rope ladder. That's not just a book. It's Zack Danger, Charlie exclaimed. I love those books. I grinned. Me too. What's so good about them? Eric asked. So I filled them all in on how he's the coolest super spy ever, and his life is basically just one dangerous mission. And in this book, he has a top-secret gang of super spies who work together to overcome any danger that comes their way, added Charlie. He really knew his stuff. Eric smirked. I bet this Zach Danger guy never had a mate who was a shark. Me and Charlie suddenly looked at each other for a second. I'm pretty sure we were both thinking the exact same thing, and you totally would have too, if you'd have been there. Eric's right, I whispered excitedly, as the idea was forming in my brain, so fast I could hardly keep up. We're staring into danger every time we're with him, right? Right, everyone said, and we all just work together in secret to get to the bottom of this dangerous case, right? Right, they agreed. Don't you see what that means? We are the real Danger Gang. I cheered. Everyone looked at each other with excited grins on their faces. If we were in a movie, our epic theme song totally would have started to play in the background right then, as the new Danger Gang was born. Okay, so I know I'm breaking that promise never to talk about what happened in the treehouse by writing this right now, but we both know that you'd be in the new Danger Gang too if you were here, so technically I think it's fine. Just don't tell anyone else. We're still testing exactly how much water is needed to set Eric off, but the other day it rained at morning break time, and before we knew it there was a shark marooned in the playground. We all had to spend the rest of the break trying to dry him off with our coats and jumpers. Luckily, he turned back into a boy before it was time for class, so no teacher saw. It was on that very same rainy Wednesday that the next weird thing happened. Picture this. We were in maths. Snore. And Miss Tinky decided to spring a surprise test on us. Boom! Maths test. The worst thing about Miss Tinky's tests are that they aren't written down. She makes us stand up one by one and answer maths questions, out loud, in front of the whole class. It's embarrassing with a capital M. It gets worse, though. If you answer the question correctly, you can sit down and she moves on to the next victim. But get it wrong and you have to stay standing up and answer another one. And if you get that one wrong, another one, then another, and another, until you finally get one right. But by the point you're red and sweaty and your legs feel wobbly, like the extra cheese on a pizza. Now, luckily, having a scientist for a mum, my maths is pretty decent. I'm no Susie Prune, she's amazing at maths, but I can handle myself in a surprise maths quiz and not break too much of a sweat. But there's one kid in our class who never gets a single question right on these quizzes. Molly McClear. Molly's one of those kids who lives on my street, at number 19. And comes to hang out in my treehouse, and is a member of the Danger Gang. I don't think I'm ever going to get bored of saying that. Plus, we all walk to school together ever since what happened to Eric. Molly's the quietest kid out of all of us. In fact, she's the quietest kid in class. She hardly says a thing, but always has a big smile on her face and shows off her awesome braces. She's got orange ones. Sometimes she's so quiet, though, that it's like she's not even there at all. She'd make a great ninja. Ronnie Nutbog got called up to answer a maths question first. I used all my mind powers to try to push his thoughts out of his brain so he'd get the question wrong. My powers were proved useless, though, when Miss Tinky wrote 3 times 6 on the whiteboard, and I saw Ronnie fiddling around in his jacket pocket and realised that he had his calculator hidden inside it. Ronnie got the answer right, obviously, and Jamelia told Miss Tinky about the calculator in his pocket. But he said he never uses it, and that's just where he always keeps it in case someone needs to borrow it. And Miss Tinky believed him. I can't believe she falls for it every time. Maybe her glasses aren't strong enough for her to see the obvious face of a big stinky liar. Next up, she called my name, and when she turned round to write 8 times 4 on the board, Ronnie threw something at me. I caught it only to discover that it was his calculator. Frankie Brown, I will not tolerate cheating, Miss Tinky snapped at me. She gave me another sad-face sticker on the chart before confiscating the calculator. I was so cross. I sat back down, and I had just started using my mind powers to make Ronnie Nutbog pee in his pants. I think I got pretty close, when Miss Tinky called Molly up next. Everyone turned to look at Molly. Some already had giggle eyes, knowing that she was going to suck at this. Our gang tried to help her out, but there's only so much a thumbs up across the classroom can do. She flashed everyone a brave orange brace smile, but I saw her lip tremble a bit with nerves. 5 times 6, Miss Tinky wrote on the board. Molly was silent. The room was silent. Maybe even the whole of planet Earth was silent, waiting for her to answer. Molly, do you know the answer? Miss Tinky asked. Molly shook her head. Then I saw Ronnie secretly holding up a little note in front of Molly with the answer scribbled on it. I was pretty surprised. Maybe I've got the wrong idea about Ronnie, I thought. Maybe he isn't that bad after all. Molly glanced at it and said, 8? The whole room cracked up laughing. Well, everyone except the kids who've been secretly meeting in my Danger Gang, obviously because we don't laugh at each other. We only laugh in the face of danger. Ronnie had given her the wrong answer. Try this one, Miss Tinky said, then wrote 2 times 3. Molly thought for a while. but she simply couldn't do it, not under the pressure of all those eyeballs watching her. Then Ronnie held up another little note and made a cross over his heart to show that this really was the right answer. 40, Molly chimed. The other kids erupted into giggles again at another wrong answer. I couldn't help but feel sorry for her. If I could, I would have used my mind powers to put the answer in her brain, but my 2 unsuccessful attempts with Ronnie had left me doubting my abilities, so I thought it was best not to meddle with her mind mid-maths test. Try one more. A nice easy one, Molly. Miss Tinky then wrote 10 times 3. Molly was silent. She obviously wasn't born with a brain that was meant to do maths. Any idea? Miss Tinky asked. Molly shook her head. Her smile was nowhere to be seen. From the look on her face I could tell she was wishing she could just vanish into thin air. That was when it happened. The light bulbs in the classroom suddenly flickered, then grew brighter and brighter and brighter until, smash, they exploded in a flash of green. My heart skipped at the distinct and familiar colour. It was the very same green as the lightning in the storm and the water in the pool. So I had the feeling something freaky might be about to happen again. My eyes darted around the room and locked with Eric's. He'd seen the flash too, and I could tell he was thinking what I was thinking. I suddenly wished I'd told him my catchphrase so we could have both said it together. So I made a mental note to bring it up at the next meeting of the Danger Gang before whispering, "It's danger time," to myself. And I was right. Then, to my right, Jamelia let out a scream. She was pointing at Molly, who suddenly didn't look right. It was hard to tell why at first. It was as if a shadow had fallen over her. Molly, are you okay?" I whispered. But Molly just stared at us. The strange shadow grew more intense. "No. Whispering during tests?" Miss Tinky croaked as she turned her back and firmly underlined the sum on the board for Molly. It was super weird that she hadn't noticed the exploding light bulbs at all. "Miss, I think Molly might need a doctor," said Susie, but by this point it was clear that no doctor would be able to solve this problem. It wasn't a shadow that had fallen over her. I realised it looked more like Molly was fading away, as though someone was using a giant eraser to rub her out. Everyone slid off their seats and stepped away from her, except those of us who knew her from the Danger Gang. We ran towards Danger and tried to grab hold of our disappearing friend, but by the time we'd reached her, Molly McClear had disappeared. We searched everywhere for her, but she was nowhere to be seen. Gone, vanished, totally invisible, just like I knew she'd wished to be. Miss Tinky spun around from the board expecting to get an answer, but instead all she got was empty space where Molly had been. She stumbled back, a little in shock, her eyes searching the classroom for any sign of the vanished girl. Just then there was a knock at the door, and our headmaster, Mr. Sternley, popped his hooked nose into the classroom. "Everything tip-top, Miss Tinky?" he honked. "Oh, Mr. Sternley, thank heavens you're here," Miss Tinky stuttered nervously. "My goodness, what's the matter?" Mr. Sternley asked. It's Molly McClear. She what?" Mr. Sternley snapped. She disappeared," Miss Tinky said, her face as pale as a white marshmallow. Mr. Sternley's face looked so hard it might crack down the middle. "Miss Tinky, if this is some sort of joke, then this is hardly the time. It's bad enough that Mr. Kovacs thinks I'm foolish enough to believe that he needs to take a month-long holiday after seeing a shark in the school pool. A shark, really, of all the ridiculous nonsense. And now a disappearing student? Utter balderdash. What lesson are you teaching?" "Maths," Miss Tinky murmured, looking rather embarrassed. "Maths, of course it is. Sounds about right. I'd bet good money that Molly McClear is bunking class in the loo. You need to keep a closer eye on your students in the future, Miss Tinky." And with that, Mr. Sternley spun on the heels of his polished shoes and marched out of our classroom, muttering something about sharks and invisible students to himself. Before Miss Tinky had time to say anything else, the bell rang. Time for our PE lesson in the sports hall, and we all left her looking under the tables for Molly. "What's your hypopotamus?" Charlie asked as we left the classroom. "You mean hypothesis," I corrected him. "That's what I said." "Well, I'm not sure, but I did see a green flash just before Molly started to disappear," I explained. "Me too," cried Eric. "Shh, not here. These conversations should be saved for the treehouse," Susie whispered. "You mean the Danger Gang," Katie added. "The what?" scoffed Ronnie, who was looking around behind us. "None of your business. And if you hadn't been so rotten to Molly, she might not have disappeared," Jamelia snapped. Molly was so quiet before she turned invisible that I didn't think school would be all that different without her. But it turned out that for the rest of the morning, classes without Molly were, well, they were missing something. Molly was our fastest runner, so in PE we lost the relay race against Year 4, which was so embarrassing. Molly might have been quiet, but in drama class she came to life on stage. She was supposed to be playing the lead in Alice in Wonderland, and today was the final dress rehearsal. Susie had to stand in for her, and she forgot all the words and actually fell down the rabbit hole. Molly's dad is a pilot, so in geography Molly always knew exactly where all the places with weird names were. She even won our class the Globe Trophy in the school competition earlier this year. On that Mollyless day we had to put a mark on a map of the world to show where we thought Paris was. Miss Tinky said we couldn't go to break time until one of us had got it right. We missed break time. In fact, each class we had without Molly turned out to be way less fun than classes with Molly. She might have been quiet and really bad at maths, but without her our class felt like the Earth without the moon, cinema without popcorn. At lunchtime things took another unexpected turn. We lined up to collect our lunch from the dinner ladies in silence. The mood was super lame as they slopped lumpy mash and mushy peas onto our plates, and we slumped into our seats at our usual table, third from the door, furthest from the water fountain, in case it sprays Eric, like someone had sucked all the fun out of us with a big fun hoover. "I miss Molly," huffed Jamelia, stirring her food slowly. "Me too," agreed Eric, taking a gulp of his lunch. "Me 3, I added, not feeling hungry. Then out of the blue, Ronnie Nutbog, who was sitting at the table next to ours, sighed. "Yeah," he said, "thought school was rubbish anyway, but I guess it's even more rubbish without her smiling orange braces to brighten the day." We all fell silent and stared at him. It was the first time anyone had ever heard him saying something nice about someone. All of a sudden, a huge green splodge of mushy peas flew across the table and landed with a splat on Ronnie Nutbog's face. Ronnie scrambled to his feet straight away. "Whoever threw that dead meat?" he yelled, glaring around at everyone. We looked at one another, but none of us saw who threw it. It was almost as though it had been thrown by someone invisible. Splat! A second dollop of peas splashed over Ronnie's clothes. "Ah!" Susie screamed, pointing her finger at something by the water fountain. We all turned and saw the freakiest thing, a hand floating in mid-air. It was only visible because it was dripping with mushy peas. "That can only belong to one person," Eric whispered. I nodded. "Molly! She must have been here the whole time." But there was no time to think about that now. The hovering hand plunged into a pile of lumpy mashed potato and flung another splodge across the table, showering all of us with sloppy mash. That's when I had a brilliant idea. I got to my feet, took a deep breath and yelled, "Food fight!" Total chaos broke out. Hot dogs flew like javelins across the canteen. Burgers became frisbees. Baked beans poured like raindrops from the sky as the entire school got stuck in. I managed to land a direct hit with a carrot stick in Ronnie's ear, but he saw me throw it and aimed his next round of sausage roll ammo at me, which really hurt. By the time Miss Tinky came bursting into the canteen, it was a total wreck. We were all covered head to toe. Even Molly McClear, who looked like some sort of food monster. Wait, Molly was back! "Molly, you're back!" we cheered as she wiped away the sloppy food, and we saw her as clear as day again. "I've been here the whole time. You just couldn't see me. I heard the nice things you said about me when you thought I wasn't there," she said, grinning. "Thanks." Susie cleared her throat and said, "You're sorry for making fun of Molly being rubbish at maths, aren't you, Ronnie?" She nudged him in the ribs. "Yeah, suppose so. Everyone's rubbish at something. I guess your thing is maths," he mumbled, not taking his eyes off the food-covered floor. "That's the thing," Molly said. "I'm actually great at maths." Well, we were all super confused when she blurted that out. "So why do you always get the answers wrong?" I asked. "I just get so nervous standing up in front of everyone that my mind sort of goes blank and the answers won't come out of my mouth," Molly explained. "When everyone's staring at me, it's like you're all waiting for me to get it wrong, so it just sort of happens. It's not like it in drama where I can pretend to be someone else." We looked at each other. Suddenly I was feeling super guilty that in a weird way we were the reason Molly was so bad at something she's actually good at. "Sorry, Molly," I said. "Yes, sorry," added Charlie, and Katie and Jamelia nodded. "It's okay," she replied, shrugging. "It's amazing what you see and hear when you're invisible. I think maths tests might be a bit different from now on," she winked. We were all sent to the changing rooms to wash off the mess in the showers, which made Eric transform into a shark again. When we got back into our classroom, Miss Tinky asked us to sit down. Then she said, "Would whoever started the food fight in the canteen please stand up?" The room was dead silent. Only our eyes dared move as we looked around to see if Molly was going to own up to starting the best food fight ever. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw her slide her chair back and start to stand when... "It was me, miss," said Ronnie Nutbog. "I'm very disappointed in you, Ronnie," sighed Miss Tinky, as she placed a sad-face sticker next to Ronnie's name on the chart before sending him off to help clean up the canteen as punishment. As he left, he turned around and gave Molly McClear a little wink, which might just be the freakiest thing I've seen in Freaky so far. We all turned and looked at Molly, who was grinning from ear to ear, more visible than ever before. As for the rest of you, for taking part in the food fight, you'll have to suffer another maths test to make up for the one we had to cut short this morning. Miss Tinky trilled, expecting the usual groan of despair from us all, but instead she was greeted with a cheer. Not only could we see Molly again, we were going to see her maths skills in action. Very well, Miss Tinky scoffed, picking up her thick glasses that were hanging on a cord around her neck. Molly McClear, I'm glad you've reappeared from wherever you vanished to this morning, she said, removing her glasses to check her eyes weren't deceiving her. Well, now that you are here, you can go next. What is 8 times 7? Tough one, I thought. There was a tense silence as we all swivelled around and gave our now very visible Danger Gang friend a secret thumbs up. This time we weren't expecting her to get the answer wrong. And she didn't. So, I have a shark kid and an invisible girl in my class. What will happen next? Right back soon. Frankie. P.S. Remember I told you before I felt I was being watched? Well, I thought I just saw a dark shadow in the front garden when I came home from school today, like someone walked across the grass. But there was no one there. Must have imagined it, right? And that is where we will leave part 3 of The Danger Gang by Tom Fletcher. I'll be back soon with the next part of this fantastic story and lots more stories and videos coming your way very soon. If you'd like to subscribe or hit a like, that's always appreciated. Thanks for listening, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.